Good morning, Dr. Girish sir. Can you hear us? Girish sir, are we audible?
Just phone पे बात करनी है.
Yes. Night in order to bring to reality a fantasy that has remained in the minds of all since childhood, the magical world of Harry Potter. Respected Vice Chancellor, Professor Raghavendra Prasad Tiwari, who will be joining us shortly, Dr. Girish Pawar, our eminent speaker and assistant professor, Department of English, University of Hyderabad, Professor Ramakrishna Usurika, Dean in charge, Academics, who will be joining us shortly, Dr. Monisha Dhiman, Coordinator IQAC, who will be joining us shortly, faculty, scholars, students, staff, and family members of the staff of the university. I am Anusha Hegde, your moderator for the day, and warmly welcome all of you to join the Department of English in its celebration of the Harry Potter phenomena, being celebrated for the entire day through a very wide array of programs. I request our MA English final year student, Medlina Jolish, to extend a formal welcome to the gathering.
Good morning, one and all. I feel privileged and honored to deliver the official note of welcome for the day. I thank the Department of English and the English Literary Society for giving me the opportunity. First of all, I would like to extend my warmest welcome to our Honorable Vice Chancellor and Patron, Professor Raghavendra Prasad Tiwari sir, who will be joining us later, whose guidance and support has been a pillar of strength in conducting the program. We feel honored to welcome the eminent speaker of the day, Dr. Girish Pawar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, University of Hyderabad, who is here to deliver the lecture on the topic, Mother Fans Lost and Found, from Page to Screen. Welcome, sir. On this auspicious occasion, I would like to welcome Dr. Ramakrishna Usurika, Dean in charge of Academics, who took a very special interest in bringing out the literary magazine, The Ornate Circle. Thank you, sir, for your keen insights, and I welcome you wholeheartedly to the program. Faculty, scholars, students, and staff of the university, I extend my warmest welcome to you all on behalf of the Department of English. I would also like to welcome the technical staff who is here with us to help in the coordination of the program. I hope all of you would enjoy the program. I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Medlina, for the welcome address. In order to familiarize the context, purpose, and significance of the theme of the literary festival, I request Rishabh Malik, a student of MA English final year, to throw light on the selected theme.
I solemnly swear I'm giving a speech. Good morning, everyone, and no, I'm not under the teleprompter's curse. Some of you might already know who and what Harry Potter is. But for the rest who are unaware, Harry Potter is the name of a 7-part series by J.K. Rowling. The novel recounts the life of a young wizard, Harry Potter, and his friends Hermione and Ron as they attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The series is power-packed with epic fantasy, intricate mystery, and awe-striking magic which superseded everyone's mind and tongue as a series of books or through the medium of audiovisual fantasy and magic. It has been 35 years since the first copy of the series was released, but what it has come to mean and developed into since 1997 are the everlasting effects of the magic that can be seen all around the Muggle world, which will now forever pale in comparison to the wizarding world created by J.K. Rowling. Countless Potterheads are still waiting for an owl to fly in through the window with a letter from the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. We won't give up. The hype surrounding the series instantly captivated an audience of all ages and backgrounds. This is one of the most famous series, shocking and causing fever around the world. The series of novel Harry Potter has sold more than 500 million copies around the world. In the last 2 decades, we have read 7 books, 3 companion reads published for charity, and watched 8 captivating movies. The Visiting Universe, however, continues to grow and enthrall us. Harry Potter has seamlessly cut across the world of literature and become a part of our physical reality, with locations that call back to the stories or celebrate their infinite wonder. Not just at the Visiting World of Harry Potter at Universal Studios or the Warner Brothers Studios in London, but also at inspired locations like Lockhart, which is a Harry Potter themed bar in Toronto, or the Georgian House Hotel in London, where you can live in a Hogwarts style dome room. Interestingly, India also has several Harry Potter themed cafes, namely Alohomora in Chennai, the Hogwarts Cafe, which has several branches in Delhi, Lucknow, Jhansi, Manali, Kolkata, and Nagpur. In India, people might be aware of Pitradev Sanrakshanam instead of Expecto Patronum, and almost all the ideas surrounding the world of magic in India are inspired from the Harry Potter series. Almost every kid in India, once in his or her life, must have sat on a long broom and imagined the magic that would take them to the clouds. When the movie series hit the box office in India, the markets flourished with large black gowns, long brooms, large hats, mufflers, wands, and of course the famous spectacles of Harry Potter himself. Witches, wizards, muggles, and squibs of Central University of Punjab, get ready for a day of joy, magic, and wonder. Unleash your desires and fantasies, and join us in recreating this magical world. Learn your spells, and come with your wands and patronesses ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Rishabh, for enlightening the audience about the conceptualization of the Lit Fest. This brings us to the moment of turning to our expert lecture. Joining us from University of Hyderabad, Dr. Girish Pawar, presently Assistant Professor in the Department of English at UOH, has done his PhD on narratological study of Harry Potter novels, 7 types of narrative, in 2013 from English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. What is definitely going to make our audience perk up is the fact that Dr. Girish Pawar got the opportunity to personally interview J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, and he has also interviewed the late actor Alan Rickman, who is famously known for having portrayed Professor Snape. I'm sure that some of us are envious of this fact, and also that he has fulfilled a dream which every Potterhead has. He did this interview in Popular Culture Association, Albuquerque, in 2012. His research interests include cultural studies, theatre, new literatures in English, modern literatures, and transmedia studies. Without further ado, I call Sir to please talk to us and share your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, and warm welcome to one and all. I'm not sure if I'm the right fit to say and talk about Harry Potter here, because I think half of my job has been done by Rishabh, if I'm not wrong, because he already spoke half of what I was going to talk about Harry Potter.
He did this interview in Popular Culture Association, Albuquerque, in 2012. His research interests in
I would also request of you, any one of you who would like to interrupt at any given point, please feel free. If there are any technical hiccups, kindly let me know, because what I can see right now is only my screen, right? So if you have any questions, any queries at any point, kindly direct them at any point. Please, you're welcome to interrupt at any point. All right, so this is what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about Muggle fans' lost and found page-to-screen phenomenon. Now, most of us are aware of what Muggle is or Muggle fans are. Muggle is non-magical folk, so to say. As all of us know, that Harry Potter takes a lot of inspiration from J.R.R. Tolkien's work. What Tolkien fails to do, perhaps J.K. Rowling has successfully achieved and delivered. What she has done is she's created this amazing blend, a bridge across the real world and the imaginary. So my intention behind giving a little bit obscure title was precisely this, because I wanted to talk about how this intersectionality takes place in the text and, of course, the later adaptations. So Muggle fans are these non-magical folks, the poor folks that are looking at this poor screen. Let's not fool ourselves. We are technically, challenged without a doubt. I mean, the beginning hiccups would be a testimony to that. Anyhow, so my larger focus would be around fan fiction, fandom, fan narratives, stuff like that. The first half of my talk would be lost and found generation of readers and viewers, all right? And the later stage of my participation, my presentation would be about page-to-screen phenomenon. That is the transmedia studies that I little bit work around. So moving on to what I intend to do in today's class is I would very briefly talk about what is fan fiction. I'll not really get into theoretical aspects that Henry Jenkins and other people have been talking about, but just a very layman understanding of what do we really mean by fan fiction. Moving from there, I would talk about popular culture, fandom, and worldwide web phenomena. From there, I'd also talk about the idea of fandom and transmedia forms, or rather, the intersections that take place around. My later part of the presentation would focus on how fans are social as well as textual poachers. As you know, I have borrowed the title from Henry Jenkins' text, Textual Poachers from 1992. I would not really be doing a theoretical study of the same, but what I would try to talk about is the 5 important aspects that he talks about in his text. And lastly, I would strongly argue about how fandom or fan fiction creates a different kind of subculture, which in fact does a very interesting intersection between canon and non-canonical readings, or rather readerships. Now, before I begin, just a point of contention, what I would also try to do is I would try to limit myself to the original 7 books that were published from 1997 to 2007, and of course the movies. I would not really be getting to texts like, let's say, The Cursed Child and the other later installments, or rather the earlier installments, or who've been recently been adapted on the big screen. So starting with fan fiction, and what do we really mean by fan fiction, right? I mean, I do understand there are a lot of different interpretive communities that talk about fan fiction in various and in number of ways. So the basic definition would be that it's written by fans. It's as simple as that, right? You, me, anything. But mind you, not your assignments, right? Your assignments about a text are not really fan fiction. My students usually get into that trap of, believing that whatever they write is actually fan fiction. That's not fan fiction, all right? Because fan fiction is mostly put on the internet, right? It is usually put on the internet. Usually what happens in fan fiction is you try to recreate the world, you reimagine a story, but what you also do is you try to stick to the originality of text, but the narrative aspect is where a majority of innovation could be looked at, all right? Now, since we are going to talk about Harry Potter, my later argument would be that the Harry Potter fandom, or the Potterheads, so to say, have developed into this very interesting niche audiences, niche fans. Now, what I mean by this niche audience or niche fans is that they have been looking at various aspects of the movie, of the transmedia forms, so to say, let's say music, wizard rock, folk music, and all these popular modes of communication, so to say. So my argument would be that when it comes to Harry Potter, the fan fiction is not just a fan fiction that is written by, let's say, an unknown entity or just fans. For me, fan fiction, when it comes to Harry Potter, it's all about communication. It seems Harry Potter has created that very interesting academic discourse, which perhaps, again, is a problem area, gray area. Is it academic? Is it non-academic and stuff like that? But what I strongly feel is that it has opened up door for communication. So the entire world could actually come together and communicate through this particular character, right? So I look at fan fiction as a means of communication. That's what my first hypothesis would be, that it not just brings everybody together, but also creates a different kind of niche audience, which would in fact specialize in particular areas, in particular forms, so to say. For instance, if I'm sure the Potterheads in the house would know that the novel, I'm not talking about the movies, the 7 novels have actually created different genre altogether. The Wizard Rock, if you've heard anything of that sort, we have an excerpt of the same. I'll show that in later stages. But if you know that the novel has actually given impetus to a music industry rather, right? So look at the ways in which the text is trying to communicate. And that's the beginning move that I would have when I approach fan fiction. So what fan fiction would also do is it would not just limit itself to the textual analysis. It would look at movies, music, various kinds of texts. You have Twitter fiction, you have all sorts of fictions, you have haikus for that matter. I mean, just look at the way in which we compose haiku in modern times on our phones, on our applications, so to say. There's a haiku app. You write a line in 5 syllables, the other one would keep on adding, and it just goes on and on. It's like Tezra Rima, right? It never really ends. Similarly, fan fiction is also that kind of communication, where what you do is you try to invent your own story, you try to re-innovate it, you try to emulate it. I hope I'm not using too stronger a word here, but it tries to emulate what has already been written, what has already been talked about. So this is what, in a very limited understanding, I would approach fan fiction and how we look at fan fiction, all right? Now, pop culture, I'm sure, popular culture, the battle between the titans, right? The massy versus classy and stuff like that we keep on talking about. Now, what is this phenomenon, popular culture, right? I mean, why do we keep on talking about popular culture and how it is destroying almost everything? But I'm not sure if that's right. It's actually building different kind of worlds. It's actually bringing us together. I mean, imagine 5 years ago, do you really think we would be able to talk about popular culture virtually, so to say, right? So the problem with popular culture in modern times is that it has been misread in almost all senses. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the moment somebody says popular culture, willy-nilly, the first thought comes in mind is not serious. It's fun-loving generation, right? Millennials and Generation Next and whatnot. But all of us would be surprised the way popular culture affects us. Right now, where we are sitting, the way we are communicating, the way we are talking, the way we are carrying ourselves, we already been influenced by popular culture. I do understand I might be, making it way bigger a deal, but when it comes to Harry Potter, popular culture plays an extremely important role. It plays perhaps one of the most significant roles that a text could encounter. The kind of intertextuality due to popular culture that it has gotten is unbelievable. It's unfathomable, so to say. Just look at the way how under popular culture, cultural studies, you can do anything and everything. Of course, there are problems. I do not deny that. There are problems to approach popular culture. It might be getting into, let's say, the canon, right? But isn't it a high time to question and renegotiate canon? Isn't it? That would be a question we can, come later. So very briefly, what this popular culture, this phenomenon is, I'm sure everybody knows this, is a set of practices, beliefs. We have different kind of objectives. Usually what it does, it includes modern medias, new media objects, where you talk about entertainment industry, leisure, culture industry, fashion, trends, linguistic conventions, different kind of demographics, largely talking and taking into consideration mass culture and folk culture, right? Which once again creates this divide between classy, massy, academic, non-academic, institutional, non-institutional, educational, non-educational, cultural orthodoxy and stuff like that. All sorts of things are discussed under this particular rubric, right? But if you look at people like John Story or Dustin Kidd, they keep on talking about and working around this very idea and thought about of popular culture. Now, the text that we are going to look at, as Rishabh had already pointed out, that the way it has kind of transformed itself into different forms, different ways in which text has not just affected, let's say, children, but also the adults. Let us also not fool ourselves by saying that the text is a children's literature. No, after fourth book, I don't think so. The first 4 books are strongly children's fiction, without a doubt. Let's look at the aspects of this text and popular culture, if you allow me. Now, this is the time, all right? 1997 is the time when majority of the academics of the time, the larger stakeholders, students or kids like us around back then, were largely preoccupied with the newly invented internet, the gaming industry, the Nintendos and whatnot you had, all right? There's a number of possibilities that you could look at the way in which that negotiation took place into transmedia forms, and then coming back to the text. That's why I said lost and found generation. Now, what I mean by lost and found generation is that this was the time when a textbook which is about children's fiction, refused for 4 to 5 times. It's only later stages Scholastic decides to publish it in the Great Britain. Sorry, it's the Bloomsbury. Scholastic is for America. So Bloomsbury actually decides to publish it after almost 10 to 15 refusals, right? Now, this is a text which actually brings back a huge chunk of readership to the classroom. And that's why I said lost and found generation. So just imagine how we are hooked up to our phones in modern times, Instas and whatever you have. I know you feel that Facebook is for old people now, right? But let's not forget your Facebook, your WhatsApp, and your, Instagram. They're one and the same, right? Just with few modulations, with few changes. But I know you feel that Facebooks are only for us now, the oldies. All right, we'll see you later. Anyhow, so jokes apart, coming back to the argument that what this text does is it brings back this huge and important chunk of readership back to classroom. Now, this classroom is not really the literary classroom that I'm talking about. That's the beauty of Potter texts. They're academic, they're popular, they're non-academic, they're fan-based, they are story-based, they are reality-based to some extent. But what it does, it actually tries to cross over these boundaries. See, the moment you say a text which is an academic text, let's not forget we are limiting its scope. I mean, let's say a text like T.S. Eliot's J. Alfred Prufrock, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock for that matter, right? Now, the moment we started analyzing it, we started it analyzing for a purpose. That is academic purpose. Everybody wanted a better grade, but none of us actually thought about, could I read it in popular sense? And you can very well read it in popular sense. The way indecisiveness the character portrays. Similarly, the moment people started relating to this particular text, first and second, right, 1997, 1998, people actually started craving for more. And that is when the culture industry emerged. And culture industry, as you know, it functions without even our realization. It's that hegemonic nature that we have already established with it. And for good or bad, we are not sure about that. But what also does is it not just brings the readership, it also brings a readership which did not really understand the language, English language. Now, what I mean by that is a slight deviation, if you allow me. The translation of English text into other European languages would take roughly 3 to 4 months, right? So let's say if the books were to translate from English to French, English to German, and other European languages, the fans had to wait almost for 3 to 4 months. The interesting fact is, people had started smuggling books. They had started smuggling books in English in their original form. So just imagine, in our wildest of dreams, French people reading into English. Not in English, into English. Tell me a text that has done that. And we keep on saying popular text cannot really make any difference. Do you have any better example? I mean, I don't. Of course, in 60s, 70s, if I go, I might find few examples. But look at that. So it's not the German readership. It's not just German fan. It's not just the French fan. It's not just the Indian fan, you know, because I also can read it in Hindi or Marathi or Punjabi or whichever language you have. More than 68 languages, or 70 rather. More than 70 languages the text has been translated. That's a later part. But look at it. We talked about almost 30 years ago. This is what was happening. People were actually smuggling books from Liverpool, London, Birmingham, and other places. And there was a huge shortage, you know. So it was kind of a water pandemic back then, you know. You wanted to hide, but you couldn't hide. You were pulled into the trap of course, the popular narrative, the culture industry and all that. Anyhow, so my stronger argument is that overtly, the text offers way a lot than we expect or we anticipate. That's the outside world. But if you peep into the texts, right, I'm not sure how many of us have actually read the text and not really watched the text. That's the adaptation, the movies, right? Majority of us know the moment somebody says Harry Potter, the round glasses, all the time broken, Hermione Granger and Ron Weasley, right? No, they were never really supposed to appear like that on the screen, right? Anyhow, that's the debate for your Lit Fest, maybe in the later stages. So coming back to the argument that overt and covert, overtly the phenomenon larger than life is wonderful, without doubt. But if you look at the text now inside and within, it's a phenomenal text. I mean, a text which could so easily be screen written, which could so easily and amazingly be put on the larger screens. Of course, I have my problems with the text also. Not venting out here. This is not the forum. Maybe some other day I'll vent out. But the point is, if you look at the text in itself, all the 7 books kind of have all the popular narratives. Think of it, a series which not just is a campus novel. It is also a Kunstelroman. It is also a Bildungsroman. It is also a pre-epic narrative. It's also an epic narrative. It's a fantasy narrative. It's a metafictional. It is magical realistically portrayed in few places, right? So just name a genre and you'll find in the books. So I call it a zero genreification phenomenon. What that means is that it kind of introduces us with almost all the genres. So if the first one is a beginning of, let's say, a campus novel, the second one is a kind of, Bildungsroman up to 3rd and 4th. But then you also have, in the 3rd book, Prisoner of Azkaban, you have detective fiction, right? The entire third book is all about knowing oneself and at the same time knowing the others. The 4th book on Goblet of Fire as you know, that it starts becoming slightly Kunstelroman because Mr. Dumbledore is not around. That's the first hint of the Horcrux hunting, right? And in the later stages, the remaining 3 books, as we know, are kind of directed and deliberately directed towards the adult audience, so to say. So my argument is not just the outside world it creates. It also has a very interesting inside world. And this is where fans come in. This is where fans say, no, you had been wrong for a very, very long time. This is the text that talks about gender sensitization. This is the text that talks about feminism. This is the text which kind of challenges the very idea of scopophilia, for that matter. Laura Mulvey's famous term, scopophilia, right? This is the text which kind of transcends its time, space. I mean, just think about it. A text which is sticking to real, imaginary, and still keeping our interest. It is so predictable, but at the same time so exciting. You know, every beginning of the movie is this, or rather the book, this is what is going to follow. So how I would read Harry Potter is something slightly different. How I would look at it, every single chapter that I read, I would look at it as a short story. It may not have a proper beginning, middle, and end, but it has that sense of understanding. A good short story is something that leaves behind something, right? In anticipation. I would read each and every book as a novella. And then maybe towards the end, I'll read the entire series as an epic. And then I'll try to jumble and unravel, ravel, destroy, deconstruct, reconstruct the elements in the text. And this is exactly what the fans had been doing for almost 35 years, right? And we have testimony to that. Maybe in a bit I'll show you. So my second hypothesis, my second argument is that the text is not just matter of culture industry. It's not just matter of popular culture. It's also as good as an academic text as any you'd find in a literary classroom. We'll come to this debate maybe towards the end. Now, just to refresh our minds, these are the Harry Potter series. These are the 7 books and not movies. All right, 7 books, 8 movies. Bad movies in places, but the books are just out of the world, without a doubt. All right. So, as I said, the first 4 books that you see on the top came kind of chronologically, 97, 98, 99, and 2000s. After that, 3 years break, because of course they had to wait and create that kind of suspense thrill in our minds and heads. Of course, JKR did not really have time to cater to the needs. Let's just think of what happened with G.R.R. Martin, for that matter, when it came to Game of Thrones, right? People were so eager that they just could not wait for the books. They wanted it to happen on the screen. Anyhow, so coming back to the text, the 5th installation, Order of the Phoenix, comes after 2 to 3 years. I think, if I'm not wrong, 2003. Then 1 year break, 2005, another break, 2006, and then comes in 7, the last, Deathly Hallows, right? The Deathly Hallows, I called Half-Blood Prince as the pre-epic narrative and Deathly Hallows as the epic narrative. So this is what the landscape of the Potter world is all about. Now, the earlier was the first half of my presentation. Now I move to the second half of my presentation, which will take another 20-25 minutes. And this is what I am more interested rather than just the text. Now, the phenomenon called transmedia studies is something really, really interesting. People who are into digital humanities and stuff like that, I'm sure, are aware of it. Now, what transmedia storytelling does is it changes the way in which narrative unfolds. All right. What it also does is it tries to associate and stay loyal to the process of representation. It adheres to the integral element of fictional portrayal. But what it also does is it creates multiple channels, multiple ways in which the text could be consumed, looked at, practiced, So what happens is it extends that very thought and idea of not just entertainment, not just being around, not just being part of our life, our day-to-day life. What it does is it creates, or rather unites fans, invents, adds, unfolds new stories, new worlds. But the medium changes, and this is what the movies have done, right? So majority of our transmedia interaction with the movie has happened through movies, so to say, right? the text on the one hand, whereas the movie cinema on the other. But we would be surprised to know that the way in which the text has transformed itself in various modes just to tell these stories, because as you know, right, more than 7,000 pages, more than, if my math is not bad enough, 3 into 7, maybe more than 25 hours on screen and more than 7,000 pages. Just imagine how much story is left behind, how much interaction we have forgotten, we have left out. And this is where transmedia form, or rather various forms, are introduced and come in play. Henry Jenkins, very interestingly, in his text, Textual Poachers, talks about two important radical factors about the way in which transmedia interaction happens between the fans and the text. He's not precisely talking about Harry Potter, but he's talking about other text, because by then Harry Potter was not really released, not even really thought about, 1992. So what he says is there are two major factors about this transmedia storytelling, or rather transmitting a different mode of communication, or rather delivery. So he says the first is the radical intertextuality, which I'm sure majority of us are kind of aware. The intertextuality, the radical intertextuality that Julia Kristeva, later stages Bakhtin, dialogic criticism and other people keep on talking about, right? So what this does is it tries to create this complex interweaving of text through exchange of story with related information. Now, what I mean by that is this would be that intertextual negotiation that we would do with a text where we want to come out of the text. Let's say you are not happy with an aspect of the text. Let me give you a very interesting example from the text. Majority of all of us, the Potterheads, wanted Hermione and Harry to come together, because these are the two most amazing characters. One is the brainiac, the other one is fool. Yes, your Harry is a fool, as you know. It's only the courage and how lucky he is, because Dumbledore and Snape are always there. Sorry for that spoiler, by the way. Anyhow, so majority of us actually wanted to bring them together. But you know what J.K. Rowling said in an interview, that all the fans wanted Hermione and Harry to hook up, but I had to break a lot of hearts precisely because she had this poetic license. She also had to do some kind of poetic justice, which is not for really us. So what she says is that it's not Harry, it's perhaps Ron who needed her. So there's a difference between want and need, right? So what she says is perhaps it's Ron who needed her. You know how Ron is, right? Perhaps my personal favorite character, by the way. Of course, after Mr. Professor Snape. But just think about it, right? I mean, Ron will do anything for you. And I'm sure there is a friend for you always there, right? That will do anything for you. And that's what Ron is. Perhaps he needed her because he's not very bright, as we know, right? All right. But opposites attract. That is what her philosophy was. Now, this intertextuality, the radical intertextuality, this is one of the examples. Also, what happens is a lot of fans wanted it. So what J.K. Rowling did, now this is my finished work. This is the writerly work. Now, readerly text could be different. Now, why don't you become fans? And why don't you write your own story? And there are a number of stories where Ron and Hermione are together. There's a very funny one in Hindi called Ron Weasley ko itna gussa kyun aata hai? Because he's red-faced, as you know, right? And then Hermione comes and then she spells few charms and then he mellows down and stuff like that. It's a very interesting Hindi fanfic. It's brilliantly done. Anyhow, so coming back to the first aspect of this transmedia form is this radical intertextuality, right? Which kind of has to do certain things adhering to the text itself. But the second stage of this particular transmedia, that is the multimodality is something which is even more interesting. And what it does, it kind of mixes of different media, their affordances, and then unfolding of the story. And perhaps this is more intriguing for the Potterheads. And the testimony is the next one, Pottermore, which I'm sure most of us are aware of what this particular phenomenon is. Let me play the video of 1 minute and 40 seconds. Just bear with me with this one. Oh, where did it go? Yeah, it's here. Stories of even that.
Sir, the audio is not there.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yes.
My volume is full. And is it there now? Can you hear? Can anyone confirm it, please?
No.
Is he using Apple?
Sir, are you using Apple?
Sorry?
Are you using the Apple device?
No.
No, it's not Apple device. No, it's Windows.
Windows 11.
Windows 11.
Could it be from your end? Because I can hear it quite all right. Let me also check on my. Yeah, everything seems to be working around me. All right, you try to just look at the visuals, and I'll explain in a bit. There are two important phrases that I would like your attention to be drawn to. Anyhow, just have a look at it.
Okay.
So could you please share that video by a tab option that is coming on, your entire screen with a tab?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. How do I do that? Chat in the chat?
Yeah. No, sir.
So
At
the
the
present icon, go to the present icon.
Where is that?
No, not the raised hand. The arrow.
The arrow.
That need to be shared, sir.
Okay. This one?
Yes, sir. You need to stop first.
Sir, stop presenting first.
All right.
And then go to the
Published.
now it's audible.
I'm still astonished and delighted by the response the stories met. Even though the 7th book and the 8th film have now been completed, I'm still receiving hundreds of letters every week, and Harry's fans remain as enthusiastic and inventive as ever. So I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you, because no author could have asked for a more wonderful, diverse and loyal readership. I'm thrilled to say that I am now in a position to give you something unique, an online reading experience unlike any other. It's called Pottermore. It's the same story with a few crucial additions. The most important one is you. Just as the experience of reading requires that the imaginations of the author and reader work together to create the story, so Pottermore will be built in part by you, the reader. The digital generation will be able to enjoy a safe, unique online reading experience built around the Harry Potter books. Pottermore will be the place where fans of any age can share, participate in, and rediscover the stories. It will also be the exclusive place to purchase digital audiobooks and, for the first time, ebooks of the Harry Potter series. I'll be joining in too, because I will be sharing additional information I've been hoarding for years about the world of Harry Potter. Pottermore is open to everyone from October, but a lucky few can enter early and help shape the experience. Simply follow the owl. Good luck.
Just make my apologies. All right. Sorry for the hiccup. As I said earlier, right? Wasn't I right? We are technically disadvantaged, challenged. I am, at least. All right. So you looked at the video, right? And this was in 2009 October, September-ish around. Now what has happened is the movies are have almost sipped into our minds. The books have already been exhausted for almost 1.5 years now. 2009 is what we are talking about. She comes up with this new modulating different kind of storytelling technique. What I wanted to do was I wanted to draw your attention to a couple of phrases that she actually throws at us. For instance, she says that the most important aspect of these stories would be you, fans. Number two, she said digital fans, right? All of us are digital fans and everybody could be, part of it. And lastly, she also said the safe digital world, if you paid attention to it. Now, what she's actually asking us, she's asking us to be part of this Pottermore world, not just through your writings, through your words, through your comments, your conferences, your lit fests and stuff like that. Why don't you, all of you, come together to me, right? To the J.K. Rowling, right? Why don't you approach the text and you become part of it? And this is where the intersectionality that I was trying to talk about between the page to the screen started happening. This is where you and me started becoming active participants in the phenomenon called Pottermore. Now, what happens here is, in Pottermore, you become a character, you get sorted amongst the 4 houses, you earn points, you do all kinds of adventures, and it was almost kind of 3D based world where J.K. Rowling was the producer and Sony Industries funded it. So Sony would come up with this amazing visuals, amazing game-like participatory gaming, not sort of gaming world where you become one of the characters. So look at the ways in which we have been consuming this text without actually realizing the book, cinema, and now on the virtual platform. And it's so phenomenally amazing. I was part of Pottermore. I was sorted in Slytherin, which I'm proud of. All right. And a lot of funds you do. Of course, after a point, it becomes pointless for you because you realize your age and your limitations, and being an academician, you can't do a lot of other things that one could do. Jokes apart, this is what Pottermore. So look at the third way in which we are interacting with the text, and that's when I said that look at the way how we are transformed ourselves in consuming the text without even realizing it. You might say that this is not unique about this very text. There are multiple texts that have been consumed this way. Think of the Arthur Shakespeare for that matter. Think of Eliot's The Westland for that matter in modern times, or Seamus Heaney's translation of Beowulf, or anything of that sort. I do understand. Reach. That is what the point was. Now, so look at these 3 worlds, bringing them together, and now it's the fans' duty to do whatever they want to or they could with the text, and that comes next. What happens with this is the fans don't just create their own world; they actually started making music out of it. I'm sure a lot of Potterheads in the house would know there's a genre called filk music. right? One fine morning, somebody just wanted to make fun of folk music. He typoed it by writing FILK, filk music. It caught up, it's very catching. It never really looked back after that. So if folk music looks at the past, glory, tradition, lost world, the filk music is the music of anticipation, is the music of future, which may or may not really have to do anything with, let's say, the folk music. It may borrow, it may transform it, it may take its form, so to say, but it would always practice around the content. Now, another 2 or 3 minutes, I'll talk about the dialectics of the content and form phenomenon in and under fan fiction. Please try to understand, the fans cannot really challenge the form as such. If it's an epic form, it is an epic form. You can't do anything about it. But what they could do and they can do is with the content. And that's where fan fiction has, perhaps if J.K. Rowling has poetic justice, poetic liberty, this is a fanic liberty that one has. All right. And as you know that the fandom or fan fictions, if we have, let's say, magazines in our day-to-day life, in 1940s and 50s, you had something called fanzines, right? As most of us are aware of it. If you had a magazine in the 50s and 40s and 50s, early 50s, you had a text called, or rather a magazine called fanzines. They were also known as fanzines. But the interesting fact about this very phenomenon is that majority of fanzines were run by women back then. And these women entrepreneurs, editors would create an amazing non-canonical work. They would create a range of non-canonical works, kind of work that would challenge the established canon. And filk music is one of them. Filk music is actually an old phenomenon, but it caught up once again ever since Harry Potter phenomenon took over. All right. So this is also a kind of a place and space where you innovate, you invent, you play around, you introduce whatever you want to do. For instance, if I could give you a very interesting example of anticipation fiction, or rather performative fiction, would be David Davalos's text called Wittenberg, which is a Broadway, by the way, American text, where Hamlet, Luther King, and Dr. Faustus, all of us are together. As you know, they were contemporaries in 3 different places. All of them come together at Wittenberg. As you know, Hamlet was student at Wittenberg for some time. And both the professors, King and Dr. Faust, want to take over this star prince of Denmark, kind of, and the text it's a 2-act or 1-act play. In fact, the play ends with a very out of world filk music. It ends on a Sera Sera song. Could you believe it? A historical anticipatory text ends on a popular filk music, which is like phenomenal, right? So this is what the next edition of transmedia form would be. So as I said, transmedia forms, this is one of the forms. The revolution is not just in the text, outside the text, virtual text, it's also in the music. And then we have wizard rock. And you have wizard rocks like, Draco and the Malfoys, the Parselmouths, the Remus Lupins, the Whomping Willows, and whatnot. They are actual rock bands around the world. Just Google them later, not now. All right. And this very outshoot or intertextual outshoot is from J.K. Rowling's text. So somebody who says like, how is this popular text does not have any impact, I don't know what else to show and what else to talk about. So it not just changes the form, it changes the musical industry, not just the way in which a certain kind of music is consumed, but rather a different kind of genre altogether has been introduced, which not a lot of us are perhaps fan of in our part of the world, but it adheres to punk, folk, filk, and whatever music you have, classical sometimes, and so on and so forth, right? So this is another offshoot. So this would be the fifth one. And the classical example is on your screen. I'm sure most of us are familiar with this song, which you see on the right-hand side, Lady Gaga's Born This Way, which was dedicated to the queer community. Now, I'll not really read it out. It's a kind of recitation. I cannot really do it. But look at the way how folk music, at the same time rock music, has kind of transformed the very notion of, notion of music itself, the way it is consumed, the way it is looked at. Now, if Lady Gaga's song was titled Born This Way, they say sorted this way. Just read the first stanza of the both. So Lady Gaga would say, it doesn't really matter if you love him or capital H-I-M. Just put your paws up because you were born this way, baby. On the other hand, it doesn't matter if you are a Gryffindor or Slytherin. Just put your wands up because you were sorted this way. And goes on and on and on. Of course, to the naked eye and to an innocent eye, it would appear a lampoon. It would appear a kind of bootleg edition, but it is not. Please try to understand. There's a different kind of intention around here. It's just celebrating music. It is just cashing on to a popular narrative. You know, this particular song, Lady Gaga song, has got a Grammy, if I'm not wrong. But look at the way it tries to communicate. It has depth. Perhaps not the equal appeal the Lady Gaga had, but look at the remaining reminder of these stanzas. How it talks about the sorting hat told me as a first year I should be in Hufflepuff, and the earlier confusion. The same confusion perhaps the students felt when they came to Punjab Central University, right? How to go about it, what to do, or maybe earlier than that. There's nothing wrong with having a badge of pride because it's the house where I belong. So hold that should be my mistake, your head up, kid, and don't you cry. The sorting hat, it never wrong. It goes on and on and on. So just imagine, I mean, how much more a text has to communicate. And these aspects are the aspect that perhaps we have to actively talk, participate, and engage ourselves with. So this is one example of another interaction of the fan with the original texts. Now, this is the last part of my presentation where Henry Jenkins' Textual Poachers talks about different kind of fandom, fan phenomenon and stuff like that. So what he says is that textual poachers identify at least 5 distinct features of culture. And they are as follow. The first one is its relationship to a particular mode of reception. The way in which a text has communicated with you on the first level. So the mode of reception. For instance, when the 7th book came out, the people who had read it would always tease people who had not read the books, or rather who are about to go to the movie theater. Most of us were told, spoilers ahead, that Harry dies in the movie. And he actually dies, right? So there's this mode of reception, how the audience comes to know about certain elements of the text. Mouth-to-mouth advertisement, hoardings, trailers, teasers, and whatnot would be part of this particular feature. Second one is its role in encouraging viewer activism. Now, this is perhaps one of the most interesting, amazing, and appealing factors about fan fiction. So there's a very interesting activism that you would find on this virtual platform. As you know, the fans are not ready to be seen. Most of your fan fiction is out there on the internet, on the web, right? So what you do is there are very interesting activities that keep on revolving around. For instance, just think of how the adaptation of the books did not really do justice to the gender sensitization of the text. let us not forget the second and fourth and fifth book, Hermione Granger, how hard she tries to liberate the house elves in the books. She has her own union, she has her own community, she starts different kind of activism. That kind of activism is actually missing from the adaptation, which is so sad, you know, and it goes on and on and on. The third one is the function as an interpretive community, the community that we are of, the way we are trying to communicate it with our phones, our memes. Even a single meme itself is a kind of fan-featured, you know, mode of reception, mode of activism, mode of interpretive community. So the way in which interpretive community has consumed, looked at it, you know, Stanley Fish and other keep on talking about this very idea. The fourth one would be particular traditions of cultural production, how certain aspects of a text transform themselves into cultural productions. So for instance, you talked about theme parks, you talked about the merchandise, the Warner Brothers and whatnot, you know. It also kind of, since it is a culture industry, without a doubt, it would not just set up a different kind of innovative tradition and culture. What it would also try to do is it would also try to inculcate the existing culture and try to mold itself, but rather in some instances try to emulate it. Now, if I could give instance from your own area and space, would be Harry Potter. There was an offshoot of Harry Potter movies in India. Harry Potter, then there was a detective one and whatnot, you know. So look at the way how one particular character has been transformed into, let's say, the belief system of the other nation, other clan, other generation, other land, and whatever you have. To give you another example of perhaps one of the most interesting example that I find in the recent past is there's a very interesting Bengali fan fiction called, if you translate it in Hindi, in English, it would be read as follows. When Harry Potter came to Bengal. It's a dream vision. It starts with how our own literature has started through dream visions. Go back to your Beowulf, go back to your earlier texts, Nightingale and Owl and other texts of 4th and 5th BCs. It's a night vision. He dreams a dream and lands in Bengal, Calcutta. He goes to a lot of fancy places. He finds Kishorda, sings songs with Kishorda. He goes to Vivekananda Mutt. He learns about Hinduism. Then he tries some sweets of Bengal. Doesn't know how to pronounce, how to say, but he just loves it. And eats it so much that within 3 days he gains almost 10 kgs. And then he does not really know what is the difference between pound and kg. Anyhow, and amazing bootleg edition. Of course, it was published. That's why it's bootleg edition. It's not just fan fiction. Now, if you really want to talk about cultural production and particular traditions, think of texts like, I hope you don't get me wrong when I use the following text. I'm looking at it as text and not movies. Your famous text trilogy of 50 Shades of Grey is actually a fan fiction. It's not written by the author. And I'm sure most of us are aware of it. It's a fan fiction, world famous. Of course, for wrong reasons, right reasons, we are not here to take calls, but it's a fan fiction. Look at the way how it has transformed it, not just culturally, and in different industries, in different ways. And lastly, what it does, it creates alternate social community. And this is my last point, the third hypothesis that I would try to put forth. What fan fiction does, it creates this alternate social community, social space, which may or may not really be accepted. And to be honest, it does not really care if it is accepted or not. It is fine within itself. As if you remember, I used the term Tezra Rima, never-ending poetry, as you know, on the basis of prosody. What social community, alternate social community would do is, it would keep on reverberating this very notion and idea of some aspects that text could not really deliver. It would create different kind of communities. It would create different kind of activisms, which are required activisms, not the activism on the roads and roadsides, but the activism of textual analysis, cultural analysis, gender sensitization, and all the postmodern and modern phenomena that we keep on talking about. That too through distance. One might easily get in a trap and say that if you're talking about fan fiction, isn't it a certain kind of plagiarism? I would strongly disagree. I would say it's not plagiarism. Plagiarism would be when I produce and reproduce it as it is. I'm not reproducing it as it is. What I'm doing is I'm borrowing it. If this logic I apply in a lot of other places, then we are in big fix. Our academics, for that matter, then all the assignments you write, we give. Do we acknowledge that we have taken this XYZ text? Of course, in places we do, but in your exams you cannot. Would you say that XYZ text is written by this and I'm following this edition and that edition and this page number and that page? You cannot, right? So there are different kind of limitations. There are different kind of perceptions. So I would strongly say against it that it's not plagiarism. It is actually an emulation of the text. Just think of another very interesting example of fan fiction is, just imagine if Harry Potter was from Africa. What kind of perception will you get? Do you think Harry Potter from Africa will have luxury to afford a glasses? Do you really think? The color changes, identity changes, the way he would look at the world would change, wouldn't it? I created, let's say, somebody created an African Harry Potter. Isn't that amazing? Of course, I'm sure you are aware of the plagiarism charges against Rowling herself, that she borrowed it from Chinese sources and whatnot, and later the Chinese person said that she had borrowed it, and if you know, he was killed, by the way, in the later stages. Anyhow, I don't really want to scare you. I think I have scared you enough. But the point here is, it actually creates a different kind of avenue of interaction. So it is not a second-hand reading. I would never really look at fan fiction like that. I would actually look at it more culturally evolving, more community-based, more interactive than the original source. It gives me that space to interact in number of ways and modes. I take a picture, do a little bit of editing, put on the Harry Potter famous glasses, or rather new glasses, the one that Ranveer Kapoor wears. Ranveer Kapoor, right? I'm so sorry for that reference. I regret it. Anyhow, and I just do something else. I create a different version of Harry Potter. So you might say that simulation, simulacra, or Baudrillard is talking about the same thing. I do understand, but it's not a second-hand copy. That is my argument. With the final and the fifth and final point, it actually creates a different kind of community, which never really says that I have the intellectual property to this particular text. No, it's free. You go there, enjoy the text. You like, you don't like, I don't really care. It's there in the virtual world. It's up to you how you look at it. And that's why I believe that it's high time that we started looking at the non-literary texts. And that's my last point. I'm sorry I lied to you. I said the fifth point is my last point, but no, it's the second last. I know you're started getting restless in your seats, but just allow me next 5 minutes and I assure you, I'll not bore you any further. I would say that the fan fiction does exactly what perhaps Jacques Derrida has been asking us to do with texts. He has been asking us to deconstruct texts. In my humble opinion, fan tries to emulate on the given situation. It always creates deference, always creates erasures in the text. It always questions, re-questions, and negotiates with all the canonical burdens that we have in Harold Bloom's language. What Harold Bloom talked about, how we have, if we have, let's say, writerly block, readerly block, there's also a studently block that we need to address. And this studently block could also be addressed through via fan fiction, where a certain kind of ease is provided. You don't really have to be grammatically perfect, so to say. You can throw around your SMS language, no problem with that. Because I don't really need to learn the grammar before the language. Similarly, I don't really need to understand the entire fiasco called academics in order to enjoy or not enjoy a text. The moment I said it's an academic text for me, I think I'm not really doing justice to it. Of course, you can also read a text against itself, reading grain against itself, explication and all what Russian formalists, new critics have been talking about. But perhaps in modern times, postmodern times, the better approach would be to negotiate with the text, amongst the text, sometimes against the text. So that is what my last thought was all about. Now, since you have conducted and you are, celebrating Pottermania, Potterheads, I thought why not give you a few suggestions if you want to take up. If you really want to get going with Harry Potter fanfic, pick a story of your choice, look at the basics, how it is canon, non-canonical, create your own Harry Potter lexicon if you can. And then the easiest way would be to, plot your story. What if this happened? What if, let's say, Hermione was never in the text? What would happen? Challenge and just write a paragraph. I assure you, you'd surprise yourself with what kind of narrative you would come up with. And then maybe you could look at the transmedia platforms and different platforms. Even taking picture and memeing it itself is a different kind of mode altogether. Then there are a lot of other suggestions, edit and all that. I know I sound like professor here. I don't want to. And then if you really want to publish your work, just go to Harry Potter fanfiction websites like fanfiction.net. It's free of cost. Go there, enjoy. And this is the last one from my end. So why write it? Because it's more liberating. Yes, sir. All right, so I'll wind it up here. I might have exceeded the time limit. My apologies for that. This is the last piece of very famous fan fiction where two Indian characters, Parvati Patil and the other one, are talking about Harry and how Harry would enjoy Sachin Tendulkar's batting and all that. All right, so thank you everybody for being so patient and appreciate your silence. Thank you so much. I'll end the call.
Thank you, sir. It was a wonderful talk. And as you had pointed out, fans and their fiction become a readerly text that has that makes use of the intertextuality that is offered by transmedia platforms in order to highlight new perspectives. That's where you talked about the textual poacher role that the fan fiction writers might take as part of their purpose of being activists as viewers. And also this creates a new genre or has the potency to create a new genre as such. And also the formation of alternative social communities using fan fiction. Thank you so much, sir, for the talk. Can we have some kind of discussion now, if you're okay with it?
Yeah, of course. I'm looking forward to that.
Sure. I now open the floor to any queries that the audience might be having from our expert lecturer. Anyone? Any question?
Guys, sorry to interrupt, but the best thing would be if you don't ask, then I will ask. So sure, let's save ourselves from that embarrassment.
Okay, sir. Please do.
And I'm not asking. I'm just kidding. Come on. I'm equally excited for what comes next. I know you want to get rid of me. I would do that myself. I know you want to go to the next level of your.
I have one question from my end.
Yes, please go ahead.
Can you I was very curious to know how did you manage to get that interview from J.K. Rowling and Alan Rickman, and what happened there?
I should not have shared that information. I regret it. It so happened that she was presenting at a conference in New Zealand, and I wrote to her. I had been writing to her for almost 3 years of my PhD, and graciously she replied to my, if I'm not wrong, 293rd email, and she said I would be there for maybe for very short period of time, drop by. No cameras, nothing allowed with her. The interview script that I have, she said you cannot publish it anywhere. I was fortunate enough, and after that, of course, I was equally fortunate to interview after that two major people actually. One, of course, late Rickman, Professor Snape. I have few correspondence with him. I talked about the narrative strategies in the text and how complex it keeps on getting. But the fun interaction was with the later person, somebody called David Peterson. He's the one who's invented a language Dothraki in Game of Thrones. If you know this person, David Peterson. We spoke like for hours, and it was fun. So anyway, so it's just perhaps she just wanted to get rid of me, that he will stop emailing me afterwards. So that's how I got my way through. I bothered her a lot. She may still know me. I mean, I bothered her that much. So that's how I got hold of her. Don't do that. You guys are not allowed to do that. But I was fortunate enough to be part of that conference. That's all I'll say.
Sir, Prithvi sir has a question.
Yes, where is he? I've not seen you, Prithvi sir.
Sir, you can talk.
Okay. Hi. Yes. Yeah, I can. Yes, please go on.
So since we are talking about J.K. Rowling and there's a lot of buzz about it, so let me raise the proverbial question that whether the author has been resurrected from the dead, and what is the role of the media and popular culture in? Because as we talk about, maybe generations back, we talked about how the author is dead. And now, especially in this particular case, we see that the focus has been once again on the author. And especially when we talk about popular, not just Rowling, but even when we talk about the Song of Ice and Fire, the author becomes important. So how the popular and the new media changes the idea of the authorship in art.
That's a heavy question, Prithvi sir. All right. I'm sure you had been preparing for this for some time now. Anyhow, if I got you wrong, right or wrong, I don't know, but we want to discuss about how authorly presence affects the popular text and the consumption of it, and of course the transmedia aspect. So there are three aspects to the question. Let us start answering them one by one. So first, the authorly presence. If I could, in modern times, it means a lot. It's perhaps the commercial gimmick, if I could use the term and word. If J.K. Rowling did not reveal how she wrote the text, perhaps we may not really have the same effect. How she was kind of almost divorced, having a kid. It almost sounds as a fairy tale, doesn't it? That from London to Liverpool, she was on a train, and then suddenly, blink of an eye, she sees this vision of Harry Potter. Come on, that cannot be true. If you are writing an epic narrative of this magnitude, come on, it just can't be a flash of eye. Because the later investigations say that when she used to stay in Scotland, there were neighbors who were called Potters, and they had a small son, baby, who was very cute and all that, and he was called Harry. So Harry Potter, the word itself, is being borrowed in that sense. So that's one. Coming back to J.R.R. Martin, of course, J.R.R. Martin's presence is of a different scale, precisely because the texts that are produced are adult texts. They are not texts for, let's say, academics. These are not the texts for day-to-day readership. It's more of a screenplay, right? And this involvement is quite evident when the adaptations took place. The cinema, of course, J.K. Rowling also did that. But what writer can do in the transmedia form is, coming to the second part of your question, is that they can actually help them visualize certain aspects. For instance, J.K. Rowling was of the strong opinion that majority of the characters in her movie should be British. People who have acted in theatre. And you will see majority of the actors had to learn Americanized English. Because some had Scottish, some had, Cockney and some other accents. So the controlling agency of the author always helps do the better adaptations, if I could say that. It always would help, to visualize, to create, and all other aspects. And lastly, the transmedia form and changing of the form itself, it's something that we do in the digital world. Writing an assignment on Word itself is transmedia form, right? It's not handwritten. And there is a certain kind of ease in that mode. What we are doing is as we are technically getting a little bit superior, we have started telling stories in a very different and amazing fashion. Let me give a very interesting example from the movies. If you remember movie number 7, if I'm not wrong, there's a very interesting cartoonish rendition of the story of three brothers, if you remember, where these three brothers are shown as if the puppetry is being done in amazing animation. That is actually a tribute in the movie to the inventor of the that technique itself. I forget the name of that person. But what transmedia study does is, as I said earlier, also that it offers us a new and different opportunity to consume text on different levels, different capacities. A certain scene might affect a certain gender in certain ways. What if XYZ is shown in ABC? So that kind of relationship could be achieved, or something which is left behind. Now, for instance, in the Potter mode, if you realize that the author kept on saying that I would be supplementing with additional notes, additional stories, and other aspects, right? What transmedia study does is it perhaps provides us the same wine in new bottle, I would say that, which perhaps is the illusion that will taste better. So that's how I would look at it.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we thank you for taking time off your schedule, and we have all been very grateful enough that you decided to take part and be there with us. And we request you to continue your presence if you can while we wait for the Vice Chancellor to arrive, and continue with some of the other requirements of the inaugural session. Please be online if you can, sir. Can you?
I'm extremely sorry. I actually want to be there amongst you guys, but due to you saw how technically challenged I am, I may not be able to hold on to this. But I wish you all the best, all of you, and I'm sure you'll do marvelous job. And just don't use unnecessary spells on your professors. I must warn you that. And just enjoy the day, and I'm sure you'll never really forget this. All the best, and I'm so glad that you guys are doing this.
We promise you we will not use any spells.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
All the best. Yeah.
Thank you.
It was fun. It was fun. All the best, guys. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'll take your leave. Thank you.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Respected Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Raghavendra Prasad Tiwari, we warmly welcome you to the inaugural ceremony of the Magical World of Harry Potter, the annual English Literary Fest 2022, organized by the English Literary Society of the Department of English. Today it's a moment of great pride and joy for the Department of English because we are giving to the CU Punjab family and to the world the first issue of the Creative Writing magazine, initiated by the department as a platform for creative expressions of the student community of Central University of Punjab. We request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Raghavendra Prasad Tiwari, to release the magazine. I request Ma'am Dr. Shaila Zafar to join him in releasing the magazine on the days, as well as the editorial team members. It's a team of MA students, MA English final year students, Ayushi Dash, Rinsha Ravindran, Krishnan AS, as well as English PhD scholars Lakshmi Raghunath and Anusha Hegde, myself. The magazine contains stories, memoirs, short articles, poems, as well as sketches and paintings. It aims to build the creative pace of the university, become a larger platform for expressing fresh and original imaginative thoughts. The goal of the editorial board will be now to extend the mode of expressions to include comic strips, monographs, serial stories, scripts of short plays in the upcoming issues. I request all the professors to join. I thank everybody for joining us in releasing the magazine. I now request Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir to address the gathering on this momentous occasion and share his thoughts.
Esteemed teachers from English department, research scholars, and students, and also teachers from the School of Languages, as you can see. I'm thankful to English department for giving me opportunity as a Vice Chancellor to inaugurate this very important piece of work, which actually reflects the mind and thought process of our scholars. One of the potent ways to express views is writing, other than speaking. When we speak, sometimes at times we become informal, but when we write, we have to always be formal, and that is why there is a lot of difference in speaking and writing. And that is why a lot of efforts are needed to write, to reflect the views, to reflect the thought process, to express the views that are happening around in nature, in society, and in all other places of interactions that happen between the man and the environment and the society. One of the important traits of NEP 2020 is to create or to give opportunity to learners to become creative. And that can happen there are several forms which can facilitate happening this creating mind. And one of this is, of course, this writing. Then several other reflections of this, so that it is the prime responsibility of the university administration and all academic departments to provide opportunity to scholars, to train them to think, which is good for the society, which is good for the nation, and also which is good for the humanity as a whole. And that is the basic objective of training that is important, but especially in the higher education institutions. Since this is the inaugural issue, therefore, I didn't have opportunity to read what it contains, what are the reflections of students, scholars, and teachers. Once I go through, then certainly I'll give my suggestions and opinions as to how to improve this. Apart from this, another very important aspect of training in the higher education institution is to create citizens which are globally competent. Citizens are youth who can survive in any part of the world under any circumstances. And in order to achieve this, the most important attribute is adaptability to difficult situations, to trying situations where everything is adverse, but how to perform in extreme adverse conditions. That is adaptability. And that is how now the lifelong learning phrase, lifelong learning phrase has now become lifelong adaptability. And this is another important issue which educational institutions should address. Like us, we should address this issue also, how to make our learners to adapt to any situation and perform. Adaptation has some negative connotation also, in the sense that whatever you see around, you just accept it. That is one. But along with accepting the facts, how to perform, how to continue learning, and how to advance the interaction, the quality of interaction. When I say here interaction, it is not only the verbal or written interaction, but interaction in all facets of life that we have with the nature, in the society, with our classmates, with our fellow students, or in the hostels, wherever we live in a group, how we interact, what the quality of interaction that is happening, and what is the outcome of that interaction. So everything will help us to become well-rounded personality, where every facet of human agency is enlightened in the education institutions, and the refinement comes. If we read even our Sri Guru Granth Sahib, there also it is mentioned that the very purpose of education is not only to gain some bookish knowledge, but also to take the learners from darkness to light. We really travel the trajectory of education, trajectory of learning has to be from unknown to known ones. We are, from whatever unknown things are there around us, and unknown even to take the human civilization and the civilized discourse to higher pedestal. So revealing the truth. So that if we are able to do that, then we really become educated in terms of the very essence of education. In terms of degree, of course, and for job purpose, you must have the degree. But that is not the only goal. Therefore, the activities like this which English department has organized are really very relevant in the entire gamut of teaching, learning and training, where students get opportunity. And, the variety of, opportunities that are available. This time it is this potter, then next time it can be some other thing. And next time some other thing. So, this here, the idea is that you are able to analyze critically the writings, the creation. It can be poem, it can be essays, it can be novel, or it can be any other thing. So you read that critically, and even if drama you perform, and the message through these creative writings you take to the common people. And so instead of simply the learners, you also become the disseminator of the knowledge, where everybody doesn't have access, and everybody does not have critical mind to reflect. So this way, the messages that are contained in the great writings of then those messages are taking to the society, and we are enlightening the society as well. So so that is why what I'm trying to say is that activities like this are win-win situation for everyone. Teachers, they get satisfaction that they are doing something new apart from curricular teaching, and they are providing opportunity to learners, and you also learn in various ways. So this is my compliments to the entire department, and I'm sure that what I read here is I just had chance to see the front page only, the first page when I opened it, and what I saw is that annual creative magazine. So let us not make our creation only annually. We can go even the fortnightly or maybe monthly or quarterly, so that our students get better chance, better exposure to reflect. And this, let us not confine only to the English department or to this. We can enlarge the canvas of this, the scope of this magazine. It can be the mouthpiece of Central University of Punjab, particularly students, because teachers, they have several opportunities to showcase their creativity. They write art research articles published in the reputed journals and several other. This magazine. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
We promise you, sir, this is not going to be annual. It's going to be more and more frequent as possible. That's the first promise we will give. And for enlightening us about the importance of using writing and other creative modes of expression to be responsible and relevant to society and the humanity, we thank you a lot. And we know that you are always there to support our future endeavors as well. And we have received a lot of confidence after you assured us of that in your speech. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I request Dr. Shaila Zafar, Associate Professor and Head Department of English, to formally deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning. So in a world that is too much with us sometimes, the magic in creative arts remind us of times of leisure and innocence. Leisure enough for experiencing mystery, and innocence enough to believe in the magical words that appear on paper. The inaugural of the annual Literary Festival of the Department of English attempts to recreate that world. We are much grateful to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor R.P. Tiwari, for always encouraging us to attempt new endeavors, some of which have taken the shape of this festival and our magazine, The Ornate Circle, which he graciously agreed to inaugurate today. Thank you, sir. A sincere thanks to Dr. Girish Pawar from the Department of English of the Department of English, University of Hyderabad, for taking us all on a fascinating journey from page to screen of Harry Potter. His in-depth readings and research into the Harry Potter book series and film franchises speak volumes about his credentials as a scholar. Many thanks to Dean in Charge Academics, Professor R.K. Usirika and Professor Monisha Dhiman, Director IQAC, for their valuable input and active support both for the festival and the magazine. We also like to thank all the faculty colleagues from other departments and students from the different departments of the university for attending the session and participating in the different events. We are also greatly thankful to all our PhD research scholars, students, the very new students, the first year students who have actively participated in all the preparations. The video that we had looked at that displays their active contribution to the preparations of the event. The rest of the day will be a display of that preparation, and we are hoping that everybody will have a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
I thank you, ma'am, on the behalf of the entire department. She has given us unstinted support and encouragement in whatever we do regarding the magazine or the fest or whatever it is. Thank you so much for always being there. We hope you will all now take part in the adventures waiting below in the activity hall. The annual English Literary Festival, there has been an array of competitions. It starts with fancy dress and acting, memes and book cover design, brainstorming, battle of wits quiz, and ends with a highly spirited treasure hunt titled Quest for the Hallows. As Dumbledore would now say, I now invite you all to eat, drink, and make yourselves at home. Refreshments are arranged outside for the audience. Nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak. With these words, let us now rise for the national anthem and then
जनगण अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे